Hello friends, today we are going to discuss a very absorbing as you are all aware, TDS, that is tax deducted at source, and even TCS, in so many cases tax collected at source, is something that is deducted or collected out of your income or out of payments that are made in transactions with you. The challenge arises many a times where at times he has not looked at his 26AS and he files his tax return and then realizes later on that there is something which is appearing in the 26AS which he has not claimed in the return, TDS or TCS. What should he do in such cases? Obviously, say for example, if it is a return for assessment year 23-24, that is the current assessment year, in such a case, he can definitely file a revised return and make a claim. Because unless you make a claim, you will not get the credit. And based on that, if you are entitled to a refund, you would not get a refund, or a demand may be raised against you. Now, in such a situation, if the time limit for revising the return, because 23-24 the return can be revised until 31st of December 23. So you can file a revised return and make a claim. But presuming it comes to your notice after the due date for filing of the revised return. And many a times it may not be just that year, it may be 1 or 2 assessment years prior to that. Now, how do you handle such a situation? Is a challenge. Well, fortunately, the provisions of section 155, subsection 14 of the Income Tax Act, they carry special provisions empowering the assessing officer to make an order of rectification and grant relief to the taxpayer if he approaches the assessing officer in time. Now for this, let us take an example. The section 155(14) prescribes that an assessee, a taxpayer, can approach his assessing officer for up to 2 assessment years, that is from the end of the relevant assessment year. If 2 years are still open, within that time he can approach the assessing officer. So let us take an example for the financial year 2021. The relevant assessment year would be 21-22. Now for this year, an application under section 155(14) can be filed until 31st of March 24, because 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year 21-22, that is the financial year 2021, will end on 31st March 24. You can approach the assessing officer and give the relevant evidence in terms of the fact that TDS has been made and is reflected in your form 26AS, and the assessing officer is duty bound to grant you the relief. But it is important that you should file the claim within 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. So if we are talking of the current financial year 23-24, friends, you can file effectively your claim for the financial year 2021, that is assessment year 21-22, 21-22, that is assessment year 22-23, or even for the current year if the claim is made after 31st of December. So 2 years, has to be kept in mind, this time limit, 155(14). It is a very welcome provision, because otherwise what was required to be done is, you had to, really, how do you get the benefit is the major. You cannot claim it in a subsequent year, because the provisions of section 199 say that the claim or credit for TDS or TCS can be granted or considered only in that year in which the relevant income is offered to tax. So it is an important condition that if you want to claim credit for the TDS or TCS, that transaction must be duly reflected in your return of income. Now, even after 155.14, there were several situations where taxpayers were left high and dry. In situations like, take for example, we take the financial year 21-22. The relevant assessment year is 22-23. Financial year 21-22, say offering a particular income of 100,000 rupees on which TDS was required to be deducted at 10%, but it was not deducted. You have offered it as your income in assessment year 22-23. After you have filed the return and the financial year is also over, the deductor deducts the tax. So what happens? The income belongs to the financial year 21-22, assessment year 22-23. You have offered it to tax. The deductor has deducted the tax in the subsequent financial year 22-23 relevant to assessment year 23-24. It appears in your 26 AS, for assessment year 23-24. Your dilemma is, if you claim it in 23-24, it will not be allowed. Why? Because section 199 says that you can get credit for the TDS only in the year in which you have offered the income. You offered the income in the preceding year. 155.14 will not take care of such a situation. To take care of such situations, it was being vehemently represented that some relief must be granted, and fortunately, in the budget of 2023, a new provision was added in subsection 20 of section 155. And under this special provision, which is in fact becoming effective from 1st of October 2023, very shortly, and for this purpose, the income tax rules, Rule 134 was introduced, and a prescribed form, Form 71 has been introduced. Now keep this in mind, because this is a completely new provision and it can take care and give you the benefit of situations which I just narrated. Here, the time limit for approaching the assessing officer is 2 years, but from the end of the financial year. Unlike 155.14, which was 2 years from the end of the assessment year, here it is 2 years from the end of the financial year. So, from 1st October onwards, you can file applications for financial year 21-22, that is assessment year 22-23, or for the current year also, that is, if you have a situation which you have encountered, and that is financial year 22-23, that is assessment year 23-24, because you can even go up to 31st March 25, that 2 years window. So keeping this in mind, now what do? You cannot claim it in this year, but you are entitled to claim it in the preceding year. The challenge is you cannot revise the return. An order has already been passed. In that year, no credit was reflected, and therefore, how do you get that? So this special provision, and by virtue of this form, you have to fill up Form 71, and this is required to be filled up and uploaded online. And it goes to CPC because it goes to the DGIT systems. Fortunately, you don't even have to knock the doors of your assessing officer. Once you upload Form 71 on the CPC on your e-filing portal, the relevant details are to be filled in, where you will point out that within that window of 2 years from the end of the financial year, there is an amount which you had offered as income, but the credit for TDS has been received in a subsequent year, because earlier the only remedy was you had to go to the deductor and get the the TDS statement which the deductor has filed revised. Now deductors generally were very shy to do that because they also have work, and large organizations like banks, etc., they would not even heed or listen to you. Privately also there is always a challenge. So this provision will really come to your help. So keep in mind that if you fill up Form 71 and you give the relevant details, in that case the CPC, which will be the assessing officer in this case, is empowered to rectify under 155(20) your intimation or order for the relevant year, earlier year, where you had offered the income, and though the TDS is for a subsequent year, that TDS credit you will get it for that preceding year. So this is really a welcome relief, and as I mentioned, you will be entitled to it effective from 1st October 2023. I hope TDS is perceived to be very tedious, but this small little friendly presentation explaining to you the provisions in simple terms will help you in relieving from the concern and worry of this TDS if you have encountered.
Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.